We now move to the special, the report. The General Assembly calls for the report of the Special Commission on, on the effectiveness of the Presbyterian form of church government. And I call upon the convener of the Special Commission, the Very Reverend Dr. Derek Browning, to move the to speak to the report and move the deliverance. And in doing so, may I wish Dr. Browning a very happy birthday.
Thank you, Moderator. Derek Browning, 003. I'm reminded of the three ages of man, which is childhood, youth, and you're looking very well, Dr. Browning. Thank you for your kind wishes. Moderator, Winston Churchill, talking about forms of governance, said many years ago, many forms of government have been tried and will be tried in this world of sin and woe. No one pretends that, he was talking about democracy, I'll introduce Presbyterianism, is perfect or all-wise. Indeed, it has been said that Presbyterianism is the worst form of government, except for all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. Moderator, assuming that the General Assembly is happy with the report, and looking forward to the questions, there's nothing further that I would want to add, given that I know there's a pressure on our time this afternoon. Therefore, Moderator, I present the report and move the deliverance.
Seconded. Thank you very much, Dr. Browning. Are there any questions? I can perhaps say I'm aware that both in relation to this report and other reports this afternoon, people have submitted questions to the convener of the respective committees or the Special Commission. If you wish your questions, if you've submitted them and wish them to be answered on the floor of the Assembly, can you also press a button indicating a request to speak in this situation to ask your question? I do have on my screen Hayley Cohen from Musselburgh. Hayley.
Thank you, Moderator. Hayley Cohen, 075, Musselburgh, North Esk. As a recently ordained minister under the age of 35, I'd like to welcome the call of the Special Commission to cheer up and to seek today's possibilities. The conversations around a dying church do not reflect the energy and enthusiasm I've experienced among my younger and newly ordained colleagues in ministry for this church and its mission. I did not set out on this journey of ministry to provide palliative care to a dying church, but to seek the movement of the Spirit in new ways in order to proclaim Jesus Christ to the people of Scotland and beyond in our ever-changing world. As we continue to have challenging and necessary conversations around the realities of our church, can I encourage us all to look at them with eyes of faith and not of fear? The future of the church will thank you for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Since I mentioned what questions have come up, question come up from Stuart Love, Glasgow.
Thank you, Moderator. Stuart Love, 257. A question for the convener. The report acknowledged that other forms of church government were not considered, as all forms carry their strengths and weaknesses. However, the focus of the report is missional effectiveness. Can I therefore ask if the missional effectiveness of other denominations, Presbyterian or otherwise, were considered? And if so, what can we learn? And how could this ecumenical thinking shape our presbytery mission planning? Thank you.
I'm grateful for the question from the Commissioner. As I mentioned in my pre-recorded speech, the number of the Commission was very small and we had no budget to carry out the kind of research the Commissioner has hoped for in his question. Some might wonder if there are other forms of missional effectiveness and governance that are more effective than ours. To answer this, it would have been necessary to measure the ability of other churches to deliver mission and to develop leadership. To remove as many variables as possible, only comparison with other churches in Scotland would have made sense, but it would still have been impossible to compare like with like. How would you measure missional effectiveness? An increase in membership, a better connection to a geographical area, we would say parish, in which the churches were placed, a commitment to a broad, inclusive church, a good adult or children's educational programme. Missional effectiveness will depend on so much that is contextual. To do that kind of comprehensive research on this topic was well beyond the means of the Special Commission, regretfully. However, we noted in our report that the field for change was a crowded one, and the Commissioner will also have noted that the Faith Nurture Forum, as it should, addresses some of these issues. And I can also give the assurance that as the Ecumenical Relations Convener was a member of this Commission, we had the benefit of his knowledge of the ecumenical scene. Thank you.
Thank you. A question also from Gordon Palmer of East Kilbride.
Thank you, Moderator. 328 Palmer. In section 5.2, in the conclusion of the report, you say that we have seen many shortcomings in the church brought to light. What are these shortcomings?
Moderator, I'm grateful to the Commissioner for the question. In 1.1 and 1.2, we referred to the shortcomings of living with denial, that there were problems, or having identified them, have done little to adapt them radically enough in the past, particularly at presbytery level. In 1.5, we note the shortcomings of not making the fullest use of the structure we already have to implement the change that we often say we desire. In 1.9, we note the shortcomings of an inconsistent ability to plan for the short, medium and long terms and to follow through consistently. In 1.24, we talk about the shortcomings of lack of connection between and among local, regional and national expressions of the Church. In 1.27, we talk about the shortcomings of failing to remember that some, if not all, of the issues we need to address have been considered for generations, one of the most recent being 20 years ago and the Church Without Walls report. That's only halfway through the point 1 in our report. We have considered lots of shortcomings, but the key one that I think we would want to address and would want to say to the Assembly has not so much to do with our structures, but to do with our attitude. And until we get our culture right and our attitude right as we engage at every level of our church's experience, at the local, at the regional, and at the national, then tinkering with the structures will not effect very much indeed. Thank you, Moderator.
And I've got on my screen one final question from James Jack of Edinburgh.
Moderator Jack, number 12. In receiving the report from the Special Commission, I would like to say I've glanced into the mirror that the report encourages us to do so, and I really don't like what I see. The report, like with Sam's, is being honest enough to bring before us those uncomfortable questions we would rather not face. And I believe that the report is helping us to articulate those uncomfortable questions. And so I see the report as a major contribution in helping all of us to move forward at this time. And at this time of Pentecost, I see the Holy Spirit in this report, rather like a tornado, calling us to a new reality and a new and exciting future. And I thank the members of the Commission for this challenge. And I'm pleased that we are being instructed at all our courts of the Church to study the report. And this is not an option. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jack. That, I think, concludes questions. I've no noticed any further questions. We will now move to consideration of fast track. I have no requests outstanding to speak on sections 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I will give just a short period of time if anyone wishes to register further requests to speak, after which, if there's no further requests, I will pass these sections on the fast-track procedures. Just a short period of time if anyone wishes to speak on 1, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I received no further requests to speak. I therefore, under the fast-track procedure, declare that sections 1, 3, 4, 5 and 6 are passed. We now move to section 2, to which we have an amendment from the Reverend Dr. Alistair May. Can I call Alistair May 325?
Moderator, May 325. My amendment, I think, is fairly self-explanatory. In our Presbyterian form of government, the word instruct carries a very heavy weighting. It is telling an inferior court what it must do. And I simply would urge the Assembly that that word should be used fairly seldom, because the more we use it, the less force that it has, and the less effective that form of government becomes. At the moment, our Kirk sessions are struggling. Many of them have found it difficult or impossible to meet. They're suddenly going to be faced with reopening buildings, with property issues, with the pastoral issues of their congregation, and with having to get to grips with mission at a local level. They're also going to be wrestling with the huge questions of presbytery planning, almost certainly before the end of the year, in meeting with presbytery committees. I would therefore suggest, just in general, that this Assembly should be trying to give them as few compelling instructions about what they must do. This report raises some very good questions, but many of our Kirk sessions have already been thinking and wrestling with these questions in their own ways. And I would simply ask the Assembly, while commending this report to be looked at by Kirk sessions, it would fall short of compelling them to do so at this time.
Thank you very much. I have a request to speak on this amendment from Gordon Palmer, Reverend Gordon Palmer of East Kilbride.
That's me now. Okay now? Yeah, Moderator, simply to agree with the main thrust of Alistair May's contribution, and also to appeal to commissioners that so often General Assembly debates are focused on each day, and a cumulative effect can build up over the week, and is to say, please do not have that kind of cumulative effect of burdening or overburdening or overstretching our Kirk sessions. My second reason for wishing to change instruct to invite is because my reading of this report is diametrically the opposite of what Jim Jack has just said. I read this report and was greatly disappointed. The convener of the Special Commission, last time I was at the General Assembly, said that the Assembly Council report of that year was the most disappointing thing he'd read. I was thinking about words like stones and glass and houses and throw when I read this report. It really is saying polity is incidental, change our attitudes. Well, we're all working on that. We're all seeking to do that. And if we haven't been engaged on that, why not? And it leaves aside important questions about polity. So, for example, Presbyterianism grew out of a context of endorsement of Christendom. But widely acknowledged is that we're living in a post-Christendom society. So why did we not look, for example, about whether we could learn anything from, say, the Anabaptist tradition, which grew up out of being excluded from Christendom and working in that option? It seems to me that the report has failed to do what it's been asked to do. And for that reason, as well as overburdening Kirk sessions, I think we should change the instruct to invite.
Thank you very much, Mr. Palmer. I have no further requests to speak on this amendment, therefore invite the convener to respond.
Thank you, Moderator. The reason that the Special Commission has chosen to use the word instruct for Kirk sessions, presbyteries and the agencies of the General Assembly is that we believe that all of these parts of our church have an important part to play in the moving forward with some of the questions that we raise in this report. It matters, it is important, and it is something that we hope that the entire church will engage with over the next weeks, months, and maybe well beyond that time. We would be looking to thinking about how we give information to Kirk Sessions and presbyteries in particular, and I believe there's a new section, deliverance, coming up later on that may address some of these issues. But we felt it was important that all parts of the church should be given equal opportunity to discuss these most important things. That is the thrust of the Special Commission's report, and I believe that is what the General Assembly and the Church of Scotland should be doing over these next few months. We are all in this together, and everyone should have a voice and should have opportunity to speak and to question and to wonder about these most important of things. Thank you, Moderator.
Thank you very much. The amendment having been moved and seconded, I will perhaps just repeat it. It is to amend section 2 by deleting the word instruct, which is the first word of section 2, and to replace it by the word invite. We'll now proceed to a vote.
Has it been seconded?
It has been seconded. Yes, it has been seconded. The seconded sign came up.
Okay, thank you.
Proceed to vote. Press your buttons for or against, and voting is open now. Voting is closed. There are voted for 315 and against 208. Therefore, I declare that the amendment has been carried. We now proceed to section 2 as amended. And I have a request from Mr. Graham Roberts from Aberdeen.
Thank you, Moderator. 222, Graham Roberts. May I ask the convener the intention to prepare a summary of the report with a list of the questions in sections 2 and 3 for clerk sessions and presbyteries to consider?
Convener.
Moderator, I've been given notice that there may be an extra section to the deliverance coming from Dr. Hill, which kind of addresses that issue, but to say to the Assembly and to the Commissioner that yes, that is in our mind, that whatever the Assembly agrees that we do after discussion, we would certainly be wanting to prepare something to enable Kirk Sessions and presbyteries particularly to engage with the questions we raise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Convener. We now proceed to vote on section 2 as amended. Voting is open. Will you please press your buttons for or against? Yeah, just to clarify, the text that is appearing on your hub is the unamended text. Just to remind you that Assembly has voted to amend it. It does now read invite Kirk Sessions. I think voting is closed, and there are votes for 491 against 28. Therefore, section 2 as amended is passed. Sections 3 and 4 have been fast-tracked, and there is a new section to be proposed by the Reverend Dr. Robin Hill. Dr. Hill.
Moderator, Hill 79. It's very good that Kirk Sessions and presbyteries and agencies of the General Assembly should be given the opportunity to study this document and to consider it in their own setting. But I think we should be going further. We should be encouraging ordinary members of the church, elders, ministers, employees at one-to-one level, all sorts of different people, to get together and actually go over what's involved here. And so I'm suggesting that there should be a National Day webinar, and I'm suggesting that it should be no later than the 30th of November this year, giving those who are organising it a full 6 months in which they could get this right, but also ensuring that it happens this year and not later. The one problem I have, moderator, is that I've been trying to work out who the responsible body should be, and I've been taking advice from different people. You see one set of possibilities there, but since submitting this, I've also discovered that another option might be to send it to the Assembly Trustees and the Assembly Trustees webinar group and other stakeholders, whoever those other stakeholders might be. So I'm confused as to where we should go, and perhaps we could get some advice on this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hill. Are there any other requests to speak on this new section? I have a request from, I think that's the same. No other requests. Convener.
Moderator, I'm grateful to Dr. Hill for this section. I'm, however, sharing his confusion about where this goes and who will actually handle this. So I wonder if he and the General Assembly would be minded to accept my assurance, and I believe it's the Assembly trustees primarily who would be the ones who would facilitate this, to look at how we might best take what he is suggesting forward. So rather than tying our hands to a webinar and the date, and I would agree that sooner rather than later is better, to give the assurance to the Assembly that we would certainly be happy to work with the Assembly trustees to facilitate something in the future. Certainly what was in our mind as a commission was that documents would be produced for Kirk Sessions and presbyteries in particular to highlight the areas that we thought were ones that they should be considering and discussing. We hadn't thought about a webinar. I would have to say thinking about a whole day's webinar does seem to be quite a lengthy undertaking, although it is an important subject. And we also think that this is something that will have a great deal of traction at the local level, so it may well be that presbyteries would want to organise something too. And so that simply adds to the confusion that Dr. Hill has alluded to. I would want to give the assurance, if the Assembly is so minded, that this will be something that we would want to take forward, probably with our friends at the Assembly Trustees, and certainly to arrange something before the end of the year. Therefore, with regret, I would resist what Dr. Hill is saying, not because I'm unhappy with the tenor of what he's putting forward, but I think it ties our hands just a little bit too tightly, and a little bit of freedom to work out what is going to best serve the church would be something that we would all appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Another one further request has come up. It came up after I had invited the convener to respond, so I think we must now move to vote on whether to... Actually, is this new section seconded?
No. Moderator, I think we better clear up the confusion. I don't like to see Robin Hill trapped in that room confused, so it seems wrong. I think the suggestion, Robin, it may be that in our electronic communications with you, we've missed each other in the passing. The text that's now on the screen, as I understood it, was the one that was sent to you as a suggested way of working so that we would engage the Assembly Trustees and the Assembly Trustees webinar group. A new section, instruct the Assembly Trustees webinar group and related stakeholders to host a National Day webinar on the opportunities presented by the report, inviting participation from all levels of church life. This event to take place before 30th November 2021. And I wondered if Dr. Hill would be happy to move that text with the assurance that the Assembly Trustees convener is sitting here, and Dave Kendall, the Chief Officer, sitting here, who organises the webinar group, and they're nodding benignly and encouragingly towards me, as they often do, that they would take that forward if that was what you wanted to move, Dr. Hill.
Dr. Hill?
Thank you to Dr. White for that. I'm very happy to go with that suggestion. And as he said, I did indeed miss what was being said from him to me. So apologies for that. But I think you've got the right way of proceeding in this case.
Does the convener have any response to the text as we now have it?
We are the General Assembly's humble handmaidens in this matter, so whatever the Assembly wishes to do, that's all the way through been our intention.
Yeah. Apologies, 'cause I think after Brian Kerr did I'll invite the convener to respond after Brian Kerr. Brian, it came up on my screen, then it disappeared again. So I'll just invite you if you want to speak, and then in case there's anything you say, I'll invite Dr. Browning to respond. And I think this new section has been seconded.
Yeah, Moderator Kerr 194, and it was simply to say I didn't know Dave Kendall was in the room, but as a member of that webinar group, I know that the team would be more than happy to actually take this on and relish the challenge of being able to lead more webinars on this type of thing if the General Assembly were willing to do that. I think it's a great idea that Dr. Hill's put forward. I think it's a good way of getting information out to people, and it can be, as we've shown over this last year with many webinars for ministers, for deacons and for others, that it's a really good way of engaging people quickly, effectively, and in the spirit of Saturday, cheaply for the Church of Scotland as well. And I would support Dr. Hill's motion in this text.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Moderator, we are in the hands of the Assembly, so whatever the Assembly feels best to do, but I'm reassured that we now have resources that we've not had for 2 years behind us, which is great. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I must now put to the Assembly the new section, which would come in after section 4. Will you please stand ready to vote for or against? Voting now open. Voting closed, and there is voted for 435 and against 68. I therefore declare that that new section is added. The other sections have been fast-tracked. I therefore ask the Assembly to approve the deliverance as amended. Thank you very much. Dr. Browning. Derek, those who served with you on the Special Commission say that you brought to your convenership your love and knowledge of the Church gained over many, many years of parish ministry, convenership of committees, as well, of course, as your year as moderator. You implicitly understand the workings of the Church and its legislation and its history, but you also understand and enjoy the workings of the people of the Church, their fears, their faith, their joys, their gifts. And I'm told that you helped the Commission to celebrate and value the whole life of the Church, past, present and future. Your keen mind was able to draw together the Commission's discussions, and I'm told this is their word, not mine, ramblings, to pick up on pertinent points and to collate them into a document that reflected some of their concerns, but also their hopes. And you did so with patience, with humour and with wisdom. It is said that you described the Special Commission as one of the best fraternals you'd ever been a part of. And certainly the members all felt that they could laugh and share stories and be honest in what they saw and felt, going back to their own parishes and places of work, enlivened and excited by the work of the Commission and loving the Church they serve more deeply and gracefully than before. On behalf of the Assembly and the Church, may I convey to you our warmest thanks and appreciation. Thank you very much.